Have you ever thought that maybe people just don't want what you have? That sometimes it just kind of feels like you're doing all the right things. You're putting your socials out, you're asking for referrals, and you're doing all the marketing things that you know you should, but it kind of feels like you're shouting into a void because nothing ever comes from all the work that you're putting out, right? And you're still stuck without anyone coming in the door. And after doing all those things, you don't actually know where to go to find the people. And with each passing week, it gets harder and harder because you can feel the bills mounting up, and maybe your spouse at home is putting some pressure on you because you're not really bringing home enough money, or maybe you're just at work all the time and you're just not there to be present with what's going on with your family. And that stuff gets super frustrating. And let's just be honest, it's exhausting. So let's talk about it, you and I. Have you ever considered that maybe it's just not what you're shouting, but what you're shouting about that people just don't want? If you're new to the channel, my name is Taryn, and I've worked with hundreds of small business owners around the world who are constantly on the hunt for more leads. But the number one problem that stops them in the track is what they're talking about and how they're talking about just doesn't land with their audiences. Meaning they've got a problem with their marketing message and they have a problem with their offer. If you have something that people want and you're talking at the right people, naturally it won't be hard to come by more leads and therefore more clients. But if you're in a drought of both, then you're gonna have to start at the top. Needing more leads is every small business owner's bane of their existence. I encounter this almost every single day in speaking with them. But you don't need a big overhaul of your systems. You only just really need a few small tweaks to your offer and your marketing message. It makes me think about David, who 14x'd his dog training business just by redefining who he worked with and how people came into his business to buy his services. And it makes me think about Dustin, a rock climbing guide, and he's made more money in the last 3 months than he did in all of the entire year last year, just because he built his offer differently and he started attracting the right people into his business. In this video, I'm going to show you how to nail down your offer design so that you can build something that people actually want, but also help work with the right types of people. Because let's be honest, there's nothing worse than intaking everybody because you're desperate for cash and ending up with headache clients because they're sucking the energy out of you. And worse yet, you're probably working for very little reward because you're undercharging too. But that's for another video. Now, I know you're probably exhausted about hearing business content telling you to narrow down your niche, but it's for good reason, because it's the most underutilized part of a marketing plan that I know you're skipping. Otherwise, you wouldn't be watching this video. So once you finish watching this video and you've got your offer designed to better suit your audience, scroll through to the next part of this 5-part mini-series just by clicking through in the description, and then you can learn how to package it into your marketing message so that you can get more eyeballs on your stuff and more leads in your door. All right, fam? Let's go. To make your business flow the way you want it to, so that you can build the freedom of money, time, and mental space back into it, we really need to simplify 4 main systems in your business. The idea is to create a super simple system by which we can tell people what we do, how we tell them what we do, how they begin to work with us, and how we implement others to deliver our services. The more simple that we can keep this, the easier it will be to automate and delegate parts of it. So let's start with the how we tell them what we do part. When it comes to your offer, we're really going to look at it from 2 different aspects. First, this video is about who you best serve, and then second, how do you serve them? And by the way, you can catch the other parts of this 4 simple systems if you just scroll through this mini-series, which you can do just by clicking through in the description. So let's dig in. If you aren't getting a lot of traction on your marketing, it's probably because you aren't speaking to what your audience actually wants. The problem I most often see is that small business owners are great technicians of their craft, which means you're really good at what you do, but maybe you didn't open your business with the most business acumen that you needed. Hey, no worries. That was definitely me as a 20-year-old when I first opened my gym. I loved training people. I loved sharing the gospel of fitness and helping other people transform their lives, but I had zero idea how to actually run a business, and that caused me a lot of problems down the road. And when I realized that my audience didn't want what I wanted, but they rather had their own set of problems that I could also solve, I just had to talk to them. down. And then it got really easy to tailor everything to solving those problems that they actually had and they wanted to solve. But you need to figure out exactly what those problems are, if they're problems worth solving, and then if your audience actually wants to pay to have those problems solved. This is basically what figuring out who your niche actually is. Now again, here's that business lingo that you hear in every business video. But truth be told, you should turn the volume up, because if you stumbled here, you still haven't solved this in your own business, and it's really just time to get down to work. You need to solve two main problems. Who do you help, and what do you help them with? The who is your market, and the type of person is who you work with. But you just can't say dentist, because that's going to cast that shadow really wide. You have to go a level deeper than that. We need the what, which means that you can scale vertically or you can scale horizontally when it comes to picking your niche. Now I know, let me sidestep a minute here. You've been avoiding this hard conversation with yourself because you don't want to miss out on the opportunities to help people. So you think that by casting a really broad shadow, that's going to be the way to go. But is it really the way to go if you're just sitting here trying to research how to get more leads, right? You're here for a reason, and it's because what you're currently doing, it's not working. So let's fix that. Take a chance and trust that if you get more narrow about the who and the what part, that it's actually going to better resonate with the people that you're talking to, and it's going to increase the traffic coming through, because what you're talking about is stuff that they actually want to hear about. And I know, it's hard to take that chance, but you can put that trust down when you see every other small business owner, actually small, big, it really doesn't matter. They have a super specific demographic that they work with, and that's why they're successful. You're not an anomaly to how to build a business. I promise. I thought that. I know you think that. But I promise that's not actually how it goes. So back to the who and the what. You have two elements that you can really play with. You have a broad market with a super narrow problem, or you can have a narrow market with a super broad problem. Here's what I mean. Let's take the example of who we work with in PDBM. That's Perfect Day Business Mentorship. That's my mentorship company. We work with small service-based business owners, which is a broad market, and we work specifically with those who are stuck in that $5,000 to $8,000 per month range, which is a really narrow problem. Some other examples might include, you might work with track athletes, which is a narrow market, and they want to get faster times, and that would be a broad problem. Or you might work with fiction authors, which is a narrow market, and they want to publish their first book, which is a narrow problem. But labeling yourself as someone who works with people who want to get healthy, that's a double broad take. That's a broad market with a really broad problem. So grab a piece of paper and let's start writing down all the ways that you can pair together who you work with and what problems you can solve for them. Even if these potential solutions don't exist inside your business right now, hey, that's totally okay, because it means that we're on the right track anyways, and you might actually end up with a better avatar after this than you're currently working with. So we're gonna go down that road anyways. Once you have that potential list of the who and the what, let's figure out if this actually works for you, because that's the second mistake that small business owners make, and that's designing their business to just give everything to everyone, and they are usually the ones who pay for it in both time and energy. So we want to design this offer of yours to be something that sets up the future of your business to actually provide you the freedom for the very reason you're building it for. To figure out if the avatar you're building actually works for you, you have to ask yourself 3 questions. The first one, do you actually like these people, and do you know anything about them? Okay, that's the first question. The second question you need to ask is, do these people actually need what you're offering? Okay, and the third question, can they actually pay for what you're selling? Go in that order, because you're gonna self-select as you move down that list. So let's start out. Obviously, you need to like these type of people because you're gonna be spending a lot of time working with them. And if you don't know anything about them, then you really have no business working with them. For example, if you don't know anything about electricians, then it doesn't make sense for you to be working with electricians. Next, if you struggle to think about whether these people actually need what you're selling, then the answer is probably no. You never want want to have to convince people to work with you. You want to know that the people you're working with actually have the problems that you're solving. And finally, the third most important question, can they actually afford to work with you? It doesn't, I can't say this enough times, but it doesn't make sense to pick a demographic that doesn't actually have the money or the desire to spend money solving that problem that you are offering to solve. And it's going to be really difficult for you to try and talk to people who don't have money. But most of the time when I talk to struggling small business owners and I ask them who they work with, they've picked a niche that's broke. So be honest with yourself as you go through this, okay? Now here's an example. I have a client, his name is Travis, and he was working with people with disabilities. Generally, these people, or the particular types of people that he worked with, they didn't have jobs and they were living relatively low income. But it was a valiant mission that he had, and it was to help these people with disabilities, but he was struggling to make money, and every sales conversation that he had, it felt really strenuous because he had to convince them why they needed to pay him to solve the problem that they had. And as valiant as it is to work with people with disabilities, Travis had to fine-tune that model so that he could access the part of the disability community who could afford his services and still be able to build a business in its most basic function, which was simply just to start paying himself. Remember, you can't help everyone, because if you're trying to help everyone, you're actually helping no one. And you're just going to build a business that's going to leave you broke and overworked along the way. Another client of mine, Jana Lee, she's a physiotherapist that I work with. She's one who also fell into this trap. Now, a physiotherapist or a physical therapist, they generally want to work with anyone who's going to come into the clinic because they know that what they have will help any type of injury. But that's not the point. By trying to focus on everyone with an injury, both broad markets and broad problems, Jana Lee was exhausted trying to do everything herself. And then she was getting clients coming in who sucked the energy out of her. And it left her feeling depleted at the end of the day. And like she always had to chase her clients to follow up or to go and do their homework exercises. When Jana Lee figured out that she could focus in on specific demographics of people who had specific types of injuries, she had clients who were suddenly invested in their care and their treatment plans, and which made her retention skyrocket. And then she was getting better qualified clients with each passing day. Because of that, Jana Lee turned her business from $5,000 a month and a single person operated clinic into a professional entity with more than 5 team members. And now she's making $50,000 a month, all because she went all in on a particular demographic. I promise you can do this too. I promise you're not going to miss out on opportunities. You're actually going to end up getting more of them. This video should help you come to a conclusion on who you can best help, what problems they have, and making sure it's one that you actually want to work with, that these people actually want to solve the problems that they have, and most importantly, they can afford to do so. All so that you can build the freedom of money, time, and mental space back into your business just like you imagined on day one. If you click through the next video in this mini-series, I'll help walk you through your marketing message now that you know who you're talking at.